Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, I got a video today that I think a lot of you are going to be very excited about. That is because Sega Model King is back and he's updated WangModel Emulator 1 to version 1.3. And WangModel definitely is something that is going to be a vibe. And now that it runs Star Wars Arcade basically perfectly, I think we're going to have to call this one Wang Wars. All jokes aside, this is a game that does run in MAME, but it has some issues for a while, and even though it's been a couple months since I actually checked up on it, it is one of the most requested games, especially when WangModel Emulator actually released. People want to play Star Wars Arcade from start to finish with no issues, and I'm here to tell you that day is today. And honestly, even if this game is incredibly old now, it holds up so well, and is still one of the best games Sega's ever made, and honestly in some ways, maybe a little bit more fun to go back to than the Sega Model 3 version. Don't get me wrong, that game was also a 10 out of 10 amazing experience, but there's just something about the original Model 1 aesthetic here that holds up so well, especially when you have the universe of Star Wars behind it. Before you get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But honestly, Sega Model 1 is seeing a massive resurgence in 2026. We have Wanzai making emulators for Virtua Racing and Virtua Fighter that are available on Xbox 360, Xbox Series X, and PC. And we have Sega Model King making WangModel Emulator, which now has not only Virtua Fighter but also Star Wars Arcade in near-perfect implementations. And that is a win not only for Sega fans, but Sega Model 1 fans and video game preservationists in general. Because Sega Model 1 hardware is definitely getting rarer. More and more of those boards are going to break over time because it is incredibly old hardware, and if you want the closest to arcade original experience, that is why these emulation developments matter so much. And it's so wild to think that basically before 2026, Sega Model 1 emulation really hadn't seen many updates in a long time, and now we have not one but two different emulators out there to run different Model 1 games, and that's absolutely outstanding. Right now, Network is being worked on as well that I have seen, and Wing Wars I really haven't seen much movement on, but I feel like by the end of the year, you're going to have at least one emulator that will cover the entirety of Sega Model 1 near perfectly from start to finish that you can just sit down and play and have a fun time with. When you get games as good as Star Wars Arcade, that's going to be a win for everyone, even if they really aren't interested in this particular game. But I still remember seeing an arcade cabinet for this back in the day at our local movie theater in Vermont. I walked in and they always had some sort of arcade cabinet on the actual movie theater floor. I threw some quarters in with my father and absolutely fell in love with this game, and I even had it on 32X when it came home, and that wasn't actually that bad of a port whatsoever. It's one of those arcade experiences from start to finish if you know exactly how to play it. It takes all of about 12 or 13 minutes I believe, but it has some very steep difficulty, and dealing with the flight stick here and understanding how to warp your brain around the fact that some of it is inverted does take me a second every single time I play the game. But there's something about the Model 1 aesthetic that absolutely holds up, and that is just down to the fact that these are not texture shaded polygons whatsoever. So you just have the flat shading here, so you don't really have to worry about any of those gigantic pixels making you realize just how incredibly old the game is. Flat shaded polygons just age so well, and when they have the good vibes of Sega artists from the Sega Model 1 era working on them, it is always a win. And you will see there, I took my first death. I am not very good at this game, even though I always enjoy it, and I am playing this with a flight stick, but it's one of those things. I play so many games a year that it takes me a little bit to pivot my brain around if the control scheme is somewhat different. But I will say right now, I know you guys have been commenting in different Model 1 emulation videos asking when Star Wars Arcade would be playable, and that day is today. I mean, technically it was yesterday based upon when I'm recording this, but it's one of those things you see these usually a couple days after they actually come out, depending on what else is going on that day in the news. And trust me, it's been a very spicy news year in 2026 for retro gaming, which is incredible because modern gaming keeps letting us down over and over again. And I love that developers are out there just trying to make this possible for us. I know Sega Model King talked about the fact that he just loves the hardware and wants it to be able to be kept alive for as long as possible, and considering emulation wasn't perfect and these boards are definitely not getting any younger, going in and making sure we have near accurate arcade emulation for some of these absolute classics, and that is preservation to a T, and it's always why I say video game emulation is preservation. But a soundtrack sample, I hope it might get eaten because it is Star Wars, and I'll be right back with a lot more on this one.
Storm the Imperial Death Star and wipe out enemy fighters.
Look, S-Files and attack positions.
Watch it, you've got one on your tail.
So if you got to hear that, my expectation is it did end up being muted. You'll know the audio quality is exceptional, and if you didn't get to hear it, because I believe it will be muted, I will tell you right now that it sounds exactly like it should. And the nice thing is I have left the GitHub link in the description below, and setting this thing up is incredibly easy. All you do is pop in your legally owned copy of Star Wars Arcade into the actual emulator folder labeled ROMs, and go ahead and select it from the start menu. And that is really all you need to do to make this thing playable. And honestly, once you jump in, there is a full key configurator as well. You can use something like mouse and keyboard. You can use any sort of X input controller. At least you should be able to use most of them. So it really does give you basically unlimited options on how you want to set this up. And don't forget, if you want to change difficulty or anything else, you're going to have to go into the test menu, because that is where the options are going to live in any sort of arcade game. But going through this TIE Fighter sequence here, this fight, this is usually one that gives me hell, because there's always one left, and I'm trying to find it before the time runs out. Maybe I'm just not that good at the game, but don't forget, I play like 600 games a year for the channel, so I can't be absolutely exceptional in every single one of them. But this, again, is just pure Sega spectacle, and stuff like this absolutely has stood the test of time to still be one of the best arcade games ever made, in my opinion, and definitely one of the best Star Wars games ever to exist too. And it's not like we have a limited amount of Star Wars games to compare it against, but there's just something about the pure action of this one, making it feel like you're actually in the movie, in the cockpit. It just works, and I love it for that. And as far as the emulation is concerned, as far as I got into the game, I didn't have a single crash, I didn't have a single issues, the controls were responsive, there was no real latency to speak of, and everything looked exactly like playing a Sega Model 1 board, except even clearer, because we're not dealing with RGB out, because even though that is a very good signal, getting something like emulation and that basically raw frame buffer out so you can make it look as good as possible is definitely going to be impressive. And of course, this does look a little bit clearer as well, because I believe it's actually upping the internal rendering resolution compared to an original Model 1 board that was definitely not HD in any way, shape, or form. But you tell me down below, Star Wars Arcade, yes or no, big fan of it or not, and if so, where's the first time you actually saw it? Because I feel like when you saw this back in the 90s, you probably have that memory of it in your head. I cannot remember what movie we went to the movie theater to watch, that memory is gone completely, but I still remember jumping in the cabinet, sitting down, playing this game and loving it, and really wanting to just sit there and continue to play the game and not actually go to the movie that we had tickets for. And it really is interesting how those memories kind of stick with you. You remember the strangest things, and definitely a lot of times it is video game related. But that is why, again, these emulators are so important. The people that make them are so awesome. This isn't just so we can play a game. It really is to remind ourselves of those memories, because we all grew up with this stuff, and it really is intrinsically linked to who we are as people and what we definitely like to spend our time doing. Because trust me, I don't have all the free time in the world. I don't have to make a YouTube channel. I make it because I just have a lot of nostalgia for these games, for the hardware. Now that I'm an adult, I can acquire a lot more of it and basically just talk about it. Well, there is no second soundtrack sample because I'm pretty sure I'm going to get nailed on it, but we're going to try anyway, so go ahead and quote-unquote listen just for 30 seconds, and hopefully the sound effects override the music, and I'll be right back with more.
Good rebel fighters, commence your attack.
So hopefully you got to hear that soundtrack sample, because I really try to pick sequences where the sound effects are drowning out the music, but we'll just have to wait and see on upload on this one. And if you didn't get to hear it, trust me, just go ahead to that GitHub link, set it up for yourself, and you will hear just how good it sounds. And trust me, this one is easy. If you can drag and drop a file and unzip a zip, then you're going to be perfectly fine to be able to play this one today. And you definitely should, because Star Wars Arcade has never played this well, in my opinion, via emulation, and this is definitely something that's going to make a lot of people happy. And if you are one of the commenters that's been commenting wanting to see this one in Wang Emulator, it is going to be a very happy day for you as well. But short of that, this is just an absolute classic. I've loved this game. I have a fond memory of it. It still is fun to play today as it was in the 90s. And it is really wild to me to think how many years have gone by and just how young I was when I saw this arcade cabinet, and how it still holds my attention and fascination. But short of that, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. But we're done. I'm going to try my best to win here, and you're going to clearly see that does not go according to plan. But short of that, WangModel Emulator is incredible, and I love that it exists. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.